Okay, let's begin. And again, what we're going to do is circle back to a very critical and essential point that we made over the past two um, classes in the series relative to the prophetic Shabbat, comprehending, getting an understanding, and understanding, and overstanding of the prophetic Shabbat rest. And we began actually where the scriptures begin in terms of introducing, by way of the context of language, the concept of rest, Shabbat, with the character, the allegorical caricature of Noah, or properly pronounced Noach, Noach. And we are all familiar with the story of the flood. However, beneath the surface of the narrative always is symbols that allow us to go beyond the literal understanding of the narrative and go into the spiritual realms, the higher spiritual realm, in terms of our conception. I'm going to ask everyone again, please close, if you're not speaking, close your mics as much as possible. Mute your mics as much as possible so that we don't get the interference on the recording. Okay? Anyway, when we go beneath the surface of the literal context of the narrative, we get a much higher understanding and can make much greater connections uh, within the prophetic framework, um, and get the cosmic or spiritual understanding of what it is that we're reading. So we began with Noach, which is one of the first illusions, or allusions rather, to the Shabbat rest, because his name actually means rest. And this, this gives us a more expanded understanding of this aspect of resting, or Shabbating, if you will, just made up a word, but or of the prophetic Shabbat. We know he was a son of Lamech, and the name Lamech means powerful. And again, further on in the study, we'll come back to that and connect this uh, with our understanding of Shabbat, because to rest is power. We're going to understand that it is true power, true power. Now, see, not just energy, not just energy to work, family, but true power. There's
Yeah.
there
Mhm.
is power in rest. We're going to understand the difference. He is the father of Japheth, or Japhet, Shem, and Chem, or Ham. And we pointed out yesterday that they usually put these names of the sons out of order, but we've put them back in order relative to the firstborn, the secondborn, and the thirdborn son. And we said that, yes,
Eitai. They used to have them Shem, Ham, and Japheth, don't they?
that's correct.
Yeah.
It's inside out or backwards, Ham, Shem, and Japheth rather. But put in the proper order, it spells a word. It actually spells a Hebrew word that is key again to expanding our uh, conception of the Shabbat rest. And again, these things, Nasi, are not things that are revealed through intellect.
I had a conversation with somebody exactly about what you're saying today. He called me to ask me, he says, and I was telling him that, he was right in terms of you can't do that when you're dealing with the language construction of the language. But I told him, I said, but you got to remember, they've already played with the language, so we have to understand. So we're doing this based upon not the construction that they put the language in, but from, what I'm saying, a more intuitive, what we know makes sense based upon its relationship to the whole of everything.
Right.
So
I
I
want to
had to.
right. I want to talk about that too, because this is a point that we can't overlook. Because it was our ancestors that scrambled things up in the first place, that hid and concealed things. And speaking in general terms, Nasi, when we go to the book of Daniel, all right, we, and I'm going to divert because this is an excellent point. And again, we don't we haven't understood the full story, and we don't know the complexity of the full complexity of the history of this language, and especially as it relates to the Bible. And we take sort of a conspirator's view on it, and that is appropriate in to some degree, but to a very small degree. But when we read the book of Daniel, he was, this is an example of what I just said, our ancestors sealing the book. How many people understand what I'm talking about?
Okay.
And it's in the 12th chapter of the book of Daniel. We must understand this. Fourth verse. Well, actually, I'll read from the first to the fourth verse because this is going to put it within the prophetic framework. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. Now, again, this puts us right in end time events, the time of the end, all right where we are. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. That is, many of us that are on this call right now. Some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. And then it goes on to say, and I like the way that Abba Ben Ami decoded this 10th verse. Many shall be purified and made white. Many things shall be clarified, I believe he said, and made plain, and tried, tested. But the wicked shall do wickedly, but none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. So it was a deliberate purpose, Nasi, by the direction of our higher consciousness and our ancestors, that made things obscure from a purpose, from a deliberate standpoint. You are with me? From a
Okay.
deliberate standpoint. Now, so for what? At the time of the end, we would what? Connect with our ancestors who stand over these particular fields of knowledge, and they would do what? Clarify these things. Straighten
Mm-hmm.
out what? Straighten out and or open to our understanding the things that were sealed.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Okay.
The things that were shut up, that they would open it. So it stands to reason that before this time, you would have a certain understanding of things and apply a certain law or a certain catechism to what? Deciphering or decoding the word. But again, this is the ongoing thing, that if we are going to move forward and we're going to make this quantum leap, this transition, it would have to be made not by the word that has governed the previous age, but by a new word that would do what? Create new thought and give us the impetus to move forward and to rise higher. Do we get it?
Got it.
So I have further evidence. I let everyone know about this book, The People of the Secret, which chronicles the activities of our ancestors through time. A tremendous book, again, I recommend it. And they talk about this obscuring of sacred truth, this obscuring of divine knowledge, deliberate sealing of it within the language. So what we're doing is taking the seals off the language. So when we look at Yafet, Shem, and Chem or Ham, the Yud, Shin, and Het, they form a word. And again, when we search that word out, yesterday it was only one hit on Google, but it directly tied into the overall prophetic framework. You would have to admit that the ancestors did that. Nobody, again, is looking at this thing quite like we are right now. We have made this connection. So
Right.
to further that thought, when we look at Lamech, he was the son of Methuselah of the race or the lineage of Cain, well known for having misused the arms which his sons had invented. And there is a wisdom to that as well. There's a wisdom to this. Was the misuse by mistake, or was it deliberate
Mm-hmm.
to further throw individuals that would try to look into this off the track? And indeed, when we look at the people of the secret, when it comes to what underlies the science that underlies all of this esoteric knowledge, which is alchemy. We read before, and again, we'll get to it again, where there was this these uh, these four views or perceptions of alchemy. And if you have the book or you're getting the book, it is in the 6th chapter called Alchemy, the Disguised Path. The Disguised Path. And again, this speaks to our ancestors disguising things and throwing our enemies off the trail, off the track, deliberately, sealing things, shutting things up, hiding them, coding things in secret language that will what? Later be revealed. And again, it would not be general knowledge. It would not be exoteric knowledge. That does not apply now. We are moving from exoteric knowledge to esoteric knowledge.
That's absolutely correct.
And this is, see, this is what we have to understand. Now, see, are we going to continue to have difficulty with these things?
No question.
It must.
And ain't that just
Uh-huh.
before you go on, just what everybody online needs to consider. It never was, in contemporary time. It never was a time where everybody understood everything. It was always just a few people that had certain knowledge, and this is why we can look back now at the knowledge that we were given has brought us into this stupor that we're in. We didn't have this knowledge. We didn't start off from from the beginning like this. So it was a knowledge that we didn't have. So I'm just simply saying that everybody didn't have it, but it was the objective is what to do just what Eitai was just saying, that this knowledge that we are talking about now, it's not available to everybody. This ain't
Right.
Y'all just got to accept the fact that y'all are special. See, it's hard for us based on our history, based on how we were entrained and taught to believe. Y'all got to accept the fact that you are special, that you are that we form an elite group. I'm not apologizing for that. We are demonstrating that.
Yes.
This is not bragging. We're stating a fact. It should be obvious because we are saying that we just not up here now saying random things that are incongruent. We establish, family, a framework first. The framework was established first. And so the things that are being revealed now is just like we bought the puzzle box first. And we're giving that someone is doling out the pieces of the puzzle one at a time, two at a time, four at a time, five at a time. Y'all follow? And then we're putting these things together. We say, hey, they all fit. And look, they look like the picture on the box that was given us what? Prior to giving us the pieces. So we're not here saying random stuff that doesn't fit together. Every time we're proving that it fits together. Now, that's either a fact or come with the evidence that says otherwise.
Okay.
We just got to trust this and have confidence in it. And not once have we crossed swords. You got two people teaching. Are you all with me?
Okay.
Different aspects, two sides of the same thing, two perspectives. This has always, we showed you yesterday, this has always been the fact. And this should be, now see, this is proof to me. It's a testimony to me, because a lot of times Nasi and I are not getting together and on a regular basis or extended basis and comparing notes and saying, say this, don't say that. Isn't that the truth, Nasi?
By no means.
By no means.
By no
We are pulling this information down from the same source.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
From the same source and coming to the same conclusions. So we just have to trust that something unique, something unprecedented, something
Mm-hmm.
incomparable. You can't compare it to what has gone before.
Right.
This is something new because we're transitioning into something new and something that is unprecedented, that is incomparable. So it would stand to reason, like causes always produce like effects, that the information would not be what? Comparable, would be unique to propel us.
would have to be.
It would have to be. It would have to be. That's a breakthrough information. Is always revolutionary.
Always.
Always, when there was a shift, there was
Mm-hmm.
a new idea that what? Now see, they usually ridiculed the idea.
Right. Right.
Argued with it. Why? From the basis, hey, we don't do things like this. Haven't you
Yeah.
read the textbook?
Yeah.
So, we have to understand where we're at and accept that this is something unique and that we are a part of something that is unique and very special. If not, we're going to continue to struggle. So Lamech was of the race of Cain, or of the lineage of Cain. And once we go back and look at that this tells us something that, again, was something that is not common. That we have this
Right.
that we have this connection, and the connection, family, goes directly to our understanding of the Shabbat rest, of of um, of ceremonial and ritual sacrifice. This is what we must see, and this is what we're going back to emphasize, because we don't want to focus right now on lineage, blood lineage like that. We're not talking about that. We are talking about something that is much higher than that. That the ancestors showing us that these concepts are connected within in a special way that the vast majority of individuals have not, that they were not aware of. But what? It is being revealed to us at this time. It is being unsealed and opened up to us. No one would dare talk in the previous age of us being linked to Cain in any way.
No way.
Right. No way.
No
No
way.
way.
Man, shoot. It'd be war in the camp.
You're right about that. and you be standing there all alone.
Right.
So, but we want to understand that and move this out of the context of lineage and move it into linkage in terms of establishing this concept or building this concept of the Shabbat rest, of ritual sacrifice, of substitutionary sacrifice and death, linking it to a fundamental aspect of this Shabbat rest. Is everybody with me? We clear on that?
Mm-hmm.
So when we go back and look, and then we're going to fast forward to Isaiah, the first chapter, starting at verse 11. So if anybody wants to get that, we're going to make this connection. That'll be the end of our introduction, and I'll check with you before that, Nasi.
Okay.
All right. If you have any questions or you want to ask, I'm sure you're going to want to ask some things, but we just want to make this connection in a very specific way. Reading from Genesis, the 4th chapter, and we'll read down to the 6th verse. And Adam knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of ground. So we're looking at these two opposites that are connected, though, that are connected. These represent two sides of the same coin, two sides of the same concept. And when you look at the names, you get the understanding of what the names mean. You'll see this clearly. You'll see this clearly.
Gotta see it clearly once you understand the names.
And when you put these things together, and Nasik will give you a broader and more in-depth understanding of the name. The name Cain literally means fixity. All right? It means fixity, like a spear stuck in the ground or a lance. All right?
Mm-hmm.
It means fixity. And when you go a little bit deeper, you get to the word kun, which means a chant, a dirge, a wail, a lament, a mourning woman. All right? Something that is not positive. When you look at the word Abel or Havel, his name means vanity. So we have to keep in mind that what we're getting ready to read about is a fixed vanity.
Mm-hmm.
Are you all with me?
Mm-hmm. Come on. Yes.
A rigid vanity
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that was being established here, that it would be something that would be fixed. Now, see, but that would be what? Vain, vanity,
Mm-hmm.
emptiness. And she again bare his brother Havel or Abel, and he was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. So one was a meat eater and one was a vegan. One was a meat eater and one was a vegan. I want us to write that down. because we're going to talk about the nature of energy. And we're going to literally take a ground up approach on this. When I asked the other day, how do we as humans get energy? And one person answered and said food, absolutely correct. And another one said food from the earth, what comes from the earth. I said, well, nah, that's half true. But you got a producer of sheep, meat, and a producer of what? What comes from the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Yahweh. Now, this was vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
fruits, things that came from the ground, herbs, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Abel, Havel, he also brought the firstling of his flock. And listen, you got to look very careful. It says, and of the fat thereof.
Mm-hmm.
See, we got to look, family, in scientific terms, not of religious terms. And when I say religious terms, they got us thinking, Malkiel, that a
Mm-hmm.
secular education is different from a religious education. It is
Okay.
not. They did some tricknology on us,
Mm-hmm.
talking about separation of church and state. It is the same thing. That's why you had all these idiot black pastors supporting Donald Trump. Do y'all remember that?
Absolutely.
Does that sound like separation of church and state at all? Absolutely not. And then they instituted the 501c3 thing. President Johnson did it to control what? To control the churches
Mm-hmm.
even more and the content of what they say and
Right.
what? Their political and social activism.
Mm-hmm.
They gave them a tax exemption. And I know personally, because I went through this process, that on the 501c3 program, once you incorporate your ministry and do the 501c3 program, the first thing that you read is that you are an agent of the state.
Wow.
Malkiel, I was in the Christian church and wanted to start my own ministry when I,
Mm-hmm.
when I kept getting kicked out of the churches. And then I went down there, and the individual, the attorney that was doing the work, he was a pastor himself, so he was walking me through the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gone down to meet him. The true story. Gone down to meet him, had everything, ready. He had my articles of incorporation down there, and I signed those. And then he said, okay, now we'll apply for your 501c3 status. Now we're in his conference room, in his office, downtown Cleveland. And when he said that, and I was ready to go ahead and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And when he said that, I heard loud like this in my spirit, no. Just me and
Mm.
him in the conference room. And
Mm.
then I kind of looked, and I was getting ready to doubt what it was I heard, and it said it again. No. And I said, his name was Tassi Wiley. I said, Pastor Wiley, I said, let me get back to you. I said, I'm ready to do it, but let me get back to you. I need to look into this 501c3 thing and educate myself a little further on it. And he said, okay, no problem. Just call me and you can come back down and we'll, you don't have to come back down. We'll get the process underway. And that's when I did my research on it. And it stated very clearly that you, and I researched the history on it and understood exactly what this meant. No separation of church and state. So this was years ago that I knew this, and I knew that this technology was in place. So getting back to this, we must understand that when we read this, we must read it from a scientific standpoint. When our ancestors added this part and the fact thereof, that should get our attention, because we're going to see that this aspect of fat, both in humans and in animals, has a direct correlation with energy. With energy. Okay. All right. And the process of converting solar energy into thermal energy. We'll get to that later. But the point is that the Lord had respect unto Abel and his offering. You would think that he would have accepted the vegetables and not the meat. Right? This creates a paradox. It creates a contradiction. And what we generally do from a religious standpoint, we try to explain this away and rationalize it and put things there that are not, well, it was the way Abel made the offering, that he gave his best. And it don't indicate that at all in the narrative. And nowhere else in the Bible does it indicate that. That is a way of explaining something away. Using what? Reason. Rationalism. But you cannot solve paradoxes. You cannot. It is impossible to solve paradoxes. It is impossible to reconcile contradictions using intellect, using reason. They must be solved intuitively with the higher consciousness. But unto Cain and to his offering he had no respect, and Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. So we are connected to Cain, both Cain and Abel, but to Cain in reference to the context of giving, of sacrifice, of offering, which thus connects us to the holy days. Am I correct? And the Sabbaths and the new moons, etc., and so on. You all with me? Let's go to Isaiah, the 1st chapter then. We're going to talk about this. Questions?
Yeah, Eitai.
Go ahead.
Same time when we go back and look at the whole requirement of the offering, if we just start with Passover and we use the conceptual understanding of what you were supposed to consume, it says the whole roll or the whole lamb. Okay, so what we're talking about, the sacrifices have not understood by us. Each one of those holy days was leading us back to a particular energy vibration from Passover to the Sukkot that would take us back to, quote unquote, a holistic idea and understanding of what was required of everybody. And so consequently, Passover became a religious, sacrifice thing, but we didn't understand that it was about wholeness at Passover. It wasn't about no animal being slaughtered, on your behalf, and you continue to stay dualistic. It was about you becoming whole. So I just wanted to put that point in there so we can kind of understand a little better.
Absolutely correct, Nasik. Absolutely correct. And again, Nasik, it fits into our prophetic framework.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We're not changing no words. We're not adding anything or taking away anything. We are allowing this thing to speak for itself. By what? Just decoding the Hebrew words and connecting them to the major elements of the prophetic framework and the prophetic sequence that we had established beforehand. That cut and dry. Starting at verse 11 in Isaiah, the first chapter, and reading down to verse 17. And I'm going to fast forward to verse 17 and read, learn to do well, seek justice, relieve the oppressed, judge the fatherless, plead for the widow. Now, this is a reference to the 82nd Psalm where it addresses the gods, the deities. It's almost word for word. So we're going to establish this now, and we got to keep repeating the fact that you're going to struggle if you continue to assume the position of a human trying to do what? Work your way to divinity. However,
say that again.
You're going to continue to struggle. The more you identify yourself as a human, a created being, someone that is less than, that is attempting to perfect yourself and work your way to divinity. We said this again, it is never going to happen, and you will continue to struggle from that vantage point, from that point of perception. However, if you can really conceptualize that ye are gods, and all of you children not of the Most High, but of the highest elevation. Now, see, that is an illusion. That is an allusion to the firstborn son. You can't get no higher than first.
Right.
You are children not of the Most High. That is just a term that individuals have, based on a false conception. But when you decode it, when you go in and transliterate it, It means children of the highest order or of the highest elevation or the firstborn. How many times have we told you that Shem always goes first,
Yep.
is always primary? Y'all got to again realize
Mm-hmm.
that you
Mm-hmm.
are special, that you are unique. And like Cain, which means spear, you are the tip of the spear, the tip of the lance that always what? Breaks through first,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that always penetrates first. Starting at verse 11. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me? Again, speaking to both Abel, Cain and Abel. Saith the Lord, I am full of the burnt offerings of rams. Isn't that what Cain offered?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Rams, the fat of fed beast, and I delight not in the blood of bullocks, or of lambs, or of he goats. That's what rather Abel offered, correct?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Mm-hmm.
accepted. This is a contradiction now, a paradox
There you go.
that cannot be, Nasi, explained away intellectually,
Right.
but
Right.
has to be solved, has to be rectified, has to be syncretized intuitively.
Yes.
Because again, this is this deliberate what? Disguising of the path. Ain't no way you gonna
Mm-hmm.
get to where you want to get to following this confusing, contradictory stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When ye come to appear before me, who hath required this at your hand? We go back to Genesis, the 4th chapter.
Four.
Ain't nobody call them. They just came.
Mm-hmm.
To tread my courts. Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and what? Sabbaths,
Mm-hmm.
calling of assemblies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Come on.
cannot away with it. It is
Come on.
inequity.
Mm-hmm.
Even the solemn meeting. We're gonna go and decode this solemn meeting as well. Your new moons and your appointed feasts, my soul hateth.
Yep.
They
Mm-hmm.
are a trouble unto me. I am
Mm-hmm.
weary to bear them. And when ye spread forth your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you. Yea, when ye make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. Wash you, make you clean, put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes. Cease to do evil. Let me ask you a question. Do plants have blood?
No,
Now,
no.
don't answer quickly.
They have chlorophyll.
Uh, have you studied how chlorophyll works and how blood works?
They're similar. They are similar.
It is they are equivalent to one another.
Right. Just two atoms different. One atom different.
You're absolutely correct. Do plants have feelings?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they do.
All
They just
right.
like us. They the same, just another form.
Mm-hmm.
Now see,
Exactly.
absolutely. Hey, let's think
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
together, family.
Mm-hmm.
Let's think together because we're gonna have to deal with this vanity. this fixed vanity. We got to look at this thing scientifically. And this is what we're going to do. So now see, that's my introductory portion. If you have anything to add.
Yeah, I just want to expand a little bit on it. And Coach Sharona, she's on the line. She's familiar with what I'm going to talk about just for a brief moment because she helped me with kind of typing everything and putting everything together.
Very good.
Again, it was called the establishment of control through religious beliefs. And I went straight to the separation is done through the splitting of the atom. That's how I titled it. That was the second point. And that moved on to Cain and Abel. And what I did, just like Eitai read, now let me give you a more broader perspective of the name of Cain and Abel. And I'm going to show you what I wrote about it. And this must have been about 7, 8 years ago. I said Cain means one who is protector of someone or something, a work performed or made for another out of obligation, requirement, or gratitude, to serve, to do, and to till. This is an indication of a relationship to the creation as a whole. Now, this is how I wrote it. Able to be vain in act, word, or expectation, specifically to lead astray, to become, to make vain, as a state of being void of usefulness. And I go on to say the metaphor of the story of Cain and Abel has to be seriously investigated and evaluated from the nature of the names and history of these characters.
Absolutely.
When a people's identity is defined by the master of deception, is done to specifically work against them. If we look at the nature of the characters in the story of Cain and Abel, it reveals the names and their virtues that will help to understand that the two characters possibly have been inverted.
Wow.
Now, I wrote this like, and I'm going to close it out. We need to investigate the biblical story in respect to why the eldest son, the original idea, was rejected as being unworthy of the blessing from the Creator. Yet the mother was in favor of the son who was rejected by the father. At the same time, the father gave favor to the younger son idea. This scenario has been played out many times throughout the biblical history and civilization.
Nasi,
I
typed that up for you in 2014.
2014.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll bet y'all one thing. Now, see, you ain't teach that.
Absolutely. I ain't said to nobody about
it. And I seek in 2014 that adds up to 7.
Wow.
Right.
7 is the number of intellect.
Wow.
That was not they were not ready for that intellect.
Wow.
Still not ready, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is where we are.
This is where we are, family.
Mm-hmm.
This is where
Let's go.
Are. So now see what you pointed out very clearly was the existence of this paradox, these contradictions that are not just relegated to the Genesis, what we just showed in Genesis 4 and compared to Isaiah 1, but it's all throughout the scripture. All throughout the Genesis narrative,
Right.
you see these contradictions.
Right.
You see these conflicts between the older son and the younger son,
Mm-hmm.
and one being favored over the other one. Correct? And it's not as we suspect it should be or expect that it should be. So this creates a paradox. And instead of explaining it intellectually and trying to unravel that knot, that complex knot with the intellect, we understand that these things must be solved, must be resolved through intuition. And I'll state again that this is where the path is leading us. And in order to navigate this path, you're not going to be able to navigate it through intellect. Intellect gets you so far. And then, Malkiel, you must rest on that day.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do no more work.
Right.
Work indeed must be done.
Yes. Yes.
Right? But we're going to find out that we have to cease from our works and do the works of the Father, our higher intellect. And
Eitai,
yes,
58th chapter of Isaiah say exactly what you just said.
go ahead and read it, Nasi.
Isaiah 58th chapter. This is oh wow. Isaiah 58, starting with verse 13 and verse 14.
Nasi, read verse 3.
Yeah, okay, right.
Read verse
Okay.
3 and then go down to that. You're absolutely
Okay, all
correct.
right. Okay, good. Verse 3, 58, Isaiah. Wherefore have we fasted, say they, and thou seest not? Wherefore have we afflicted our soul, and thou takest no knowledge? Behold, in the day of your fast you find pleasure, and exact all your labor.
All your
Let me
work.
read the let me read the next verse,
Go
verse
ahead.
4.
Go ahead.
Behold, ye fast for strife and debate, and to smite with the fist of wickedness. You shall not fast as you do this day, to make your voice to be heard on high.
Absolutely.
Then we're going to drop down verse 13.
Uh-huh.
If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, they write holy. And we know that's whole,
Uh-huh.
you know, that's complete. And call the Sabbath a delight, the holy or whole of the Lord honorable, and shall honor him, not doing thy own ways, nor finding thy own pleasure, not speaking thy own word. Then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob, thy father, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken it. Now, you know, when you really read that, again, it really don't make a lot of sense if you're trying to understand that in the, you know, in the intellectual sense. It's very confusing. I've read that numerous times and really never could understand it, you know, like that. So here we are, right on time. Here we are.
That's correct. So
Can I ask the question?
Oh,
Can I ask the question?
go right ahead.
Okay. Slow learner here. I'm seeing offering that's symbolic with work. Am I wrong for seeing it like that.
I didn't hear you say it again, please.
When when we originally talked about the offerings of Cain and Abel, I saw those both as work. Um, I see making offerings as your work.
That that's
Maybe I'm seeing,
that's absolutely correct. That's
but
absolutely.
there's another level when you talk about energy.
Pardon me.
I mean, okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Explain that to me, please.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. And once we get and do the portion on energy, and you'll see it. I don't want to say too much because I want all of us to see this at the same time as it's explicated, okay?
Okay.
But yeah, you're correct. You're correct. It's both work. It both falls under the aspect of work in the sense, in the basic sense of trying to do something to what? Please or attain divinity or wholeness. You'll never work your way to it. Never.
Okay.
And
Okay.
we're going to see it was not designed to do it. Go ahead, Nasi.
I was just going to say, Your Honor, when we go to the book of Galatians, that is what the whole thing about work and faith, all these things, these paradoxes that we're talking about, you follow them, you see. That was the argument with the New Testament. Now, we believe and taught in the kingdom that you got to work your way.
That's
But
right.
again, the New Testament proved that you can't work your way.
That's right.
Um, and the work and the worship that we talked about. You remember one of the metaphysicists, he equilibrated worship as worship.
Yeah,
Now,
okay.
I'm not saying I understand that, but he equilibrated worship as worship.
Correct. See, and we're gonna see that again. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal,
Yeah.
but they are
Right.
spiritual for the what? The pulling down of strongholds. We're gonna talk about
Stronghold.
that. We're gonna
All
get to
right.
that, family. We're gonna get to that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Great questions.
Markel,
Can I say?
the rabbit hole is very deep, ain't
Yes,
it?
it is. Yes,
I mean,
yes, it is.
yeah,
Uh,
it's just absolutely no way that you can, weave your way through this from an intellectual point of view.
No, no, no
that's
doubt.
correct, Nasi.
And 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 we already got proof that the intellectual part don't work.
That's right.
Right.
So
Go ahead, Eitai.
what we have seen thus far, in just the few scriptures that we've taken a close look at, and the paradoxical nature, the contradictory nature of those scriptures was evident, and Nasik alluded to all through the New Testament. You see this war, Koti, of opposites, this warship, this war of opposites.
Yeah.
So we have to begin to understand the paradox and what that means. A paradox, as we see here, is a statement or a proposition or even a scripture verse, a scripture passage, like we have been shown that seems self-contradictory
Or absurd.
or absurd, but in reality expresses a possible truth. And we're going to
Uh-huh.
understand that what we said, now see, it expresses a higher truth. It's no way
There you go.
you can follow this thing from a literal sense, family. It's no
Right.
way.
Right.
You have to accept some part of the truth and what, now see, reject or
Right.
explain away the other part.
One or the other, right.
And we're going to find out that that's half wisdom. And this is what the Kabbalion talks about, this half wisdom. The half wise recognizing the comparative unreality of the universe. In other words, focusing on what we've exposed as simulated reality.
Right. Yeah.
Imagine that they may defy its laws. Such are what? Vain and presumptuous fools. It's vanity. This takes us back to Cain and Abel. And they are broken against the rocks and torn asunder by the elements by reason of their folly. The truly wise, knowing the nature of the universe, use laws against laws and higher against the lower. This is the true art of spiritual warfare, not eliminating the aspect that what you've been trained or educated or programmed to what view as repulsive or not applying to you, but to use both elements in an equation
Mm-hmm.
and to syncretize them,
Mm-hmm.
bringing what the lower law, which is a literal understanding, what, and transitioning it into what, a higher understanding. Isn't that what we
Mm-hmm.
explained?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And what
Mm-hmm.
individuals are having a hard time with.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because now
Mm-hmm.
see, well, hey, well, it don't conform. You can't do that. We weren't taught like that, to use the language like that. But either it fits and expresses a higher truth or it doesn't. I think we've been
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
consistent, no brag, just fact, in transmuting the lower literal understanding to what? A higher understanding, more refined understanding and knowledge of the truth.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you use the law against the law, the higher against the lower, and by the art of alchemy, this is
Mm-hmm.
what we must understand. This is a
Yes.
science. This is
Yes.
actually the science that underlies modern science. And by the art of alchemy, transmute that which is undesirable into that which is worthy, and thus triumph. Mastery consists not in abnormal dreams, visions, and fantastic imaginings or living, but in using the higher forces against the lower, escaping the pains. Now, see, this is what you talked about, this pain and misery that
Right.
has
Right.
Mm-hmm.
that has attended
Right.
that has attended our people. It's
Right.
because we have lost our ability to work this alchemical magic.
That's absolutely right. Right.
Eitai,
Yes.
now it's clear, it should be clear to us the story of Solomon and building a temple.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, the temple was built without the set of tools. So what was being built?
Yes, sir.
What was being built was that connection with the higher self and the lower self.
That's correct.
Yeah, Markel. That's it. That's why you didn't hear no hammers and nails.
Exactly. That's what. Exactly.
Right.
Now see,
That's
that's why you
right.
didn't hear no tools.
Right.
That's why there was no tools, because that building is within you.
That's correct.
Hey, just family, just for a testimony about this, I told Eitai earlier on the Shabbat, we had a national, well, not a national meeting. It was a meeting of the Rosh Hashanah, or the heads of the nation, and it was speaking in Hebrew, so now I didn't follow everything word for word, but the brother that was basically doing the talk, and then it was a prayer afterwards, call and respond. So I'm out there, and I'm listening because I know these things. So I called him over on Yom Rishon to just kind of verify what he was saying was in harmony with how I was looking at it. And so my point of bringing this up is that this is one of the things that me and him discussed about the building of the temple, because he was talking about how Solomon, was dedicating the temple. And see, we've always saw the temple as a literal building because that's why we went to church,
Right.
but the true temple being you. So, and I went on to share with Eitai, that same afternoon, how things started in the Genesis with the name, with everything that Adam was given to name it, so it was. And I took it and I went to David, Psalm, with David was the father of Solomon. So David would not give Solomon an incorrect direction to follow if David is in fact, you understand, the representative of this,
Right.
direction that we were to go. So
Right.
Solomon in the 8th chapter of First King, and I chose verse 61 to solidify what David stated, and this is perfect with what we're talking about in this, Psalms 101 and verse 2. And what it says, I will behave myself wisely. And then the question David asked the Creator, when will thou come to me? And he said, I will walk perfectly in my house. Well, what house is he talking about? He ain't talking about no house. He didn't want to build. He was the house that he was going to work in holiness.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 61st chapter, 61st verse of First King, this is what Solomon turned around and required all the people to do. The same identical thing. So I'm just showing you how all this works holistically when you understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Bang. Bakuria.
Can I add something? Yeah, can I add something? Oh, wholeness family.
Wholeness.
And I love this. I love it. In addition to Malkiel, on what you were saying about the temples, on our body is located temples. It's the temples on the side of our brain.
Oh yeah.
On
Mm-hmm.
the right side. So you got the left and the right hemisphere.
Yes. Come
after balance. And I looked at it like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful point, Bakuri, and we're going to come to that. We are going to come to that exact point as we move forward. We alluded to it yesterday by the pillars that Solomon put up, Boaz and Yakin. He named Boaz and Yakin. So this aspect of balance and equilibrium, solving and resolving the paradox, the apparent opposites. All right? This is the underlying theme, Nasi.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Moving forward, mastery consists not in abnormal dreams, visions, fantastic imaginings, or living, but in using higher forces against the lower, escaping the pains of the lower planes by what? Vibrating on the higher ones. Transmutation, not presumptuous denial. Not presumption, because something is not tasteful to you, or that is repulsive. The idea is repulsive to you, or it's undesirable. You cannot deny that it is there.
Right.
But you must learn to transmute the lower into the higher. And this is the weapon of the master.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that book.
Absolutely. So it talks about these individuals that are what? Half wise. They only looking at half of the equation. And then they make their assumptions, and eventually their argument, Nasi, based on what? Their bias toward what? One half of the equation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And these half wise are called vain and presumptuous fools. Vain and presumptuous fools. Now, skip down to Psalm 101. Fools, because of their transgression and because of their iniquity, are afflicted. Are afflicted by what? The pains of the lower planes. And we're going to do a complete reading of that portion from Psalm 107 below. This is the paradox of the universe, resulting from the principle of polarity or duality. Now see,
Yeah.
which manifests when the all begins to create. Hearken to it, to create. Pause. Hearken to it for its points. Hearken to it, for it points the difference between half wisdom and wisdom. While to the infinite all, the universe, its laws, its power, its life, its phenomena are as things witnessed in the state of meditation or dream. Very important. Yet to all that is finite, human, a servant, a son, that is lesser, that remains, Nasi, lower to something else, or subservient to something else, or less
Right.
than something else. In their perspective, the universe must be treated as real,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and life and action and thought. If you're not recognizing the difference between what Nasik uh, uh, designated as the organic reality and the simulated reality, you better follow the laws of the simulated reality. You better do that. Why? Because as a man thinketh, so is he. And if you think that that is the reality and that that knowledge can what? Support you, that it is something that you can rely upon, you better rely upon it. Because that's the law of your temple. That is the law of your universe. You've made it that way. It's not the real law. It's a simulated.
Right.
It's a law that refers to and that is attached to the simulated reality only and has nothing to do with the organic reality.
Oh, whoa. Eitai.
Yes.
Now, the question came up about morality and wholeness or holism. So now what you were saying, when you come under this simulated reality, this brings with it morality and all of these things.
Yeah, and
So there's
laws,
no way of doing things.
look, all of them laws, all of them holy days, all of them new moon festivals, solemn assembly, you better do all that.
Yeah.
Why? Because you think your life depends on it.
Yeah.
It's saying it must be based thereupon. Must be based thereupon. Accordingly, although with an ever understanding of what? The higher truth. So, and we have some people that are here right now, Nasi, that are making that transition. What? From the lower truth of the what? Simulated reality, and they are ever increasing their understanding of the higher truth.
Yeah.
So these are the individuals that mercy, Nasi, will wait on.
Right.
Mercy is going to what? Stay the hand of severity.
Right.
And it's just like when the avenging angel or the death angel appeared what? To Moses. I mean to Abram on its way to what? Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right.
And Abram was like, hey, well, where y'all going? Oh, we going to destroy this. Well, let me bring mercy into the situation. If there were 100 people that were righteous, y'all hearing this?
Right.
But but there came a time where what? Mercy stood aside.
There you go.
And judgment came.
Yeah.
With Noah, preaching for 100 years, I think it was.
Yeah.
And at the same time building it, that was mercy. But it came a time where the door of the ark, rather, what? Was closed.
Had to close it.
And the ship sailed.
Yeah.
Although with an ever understanding of the higher truth, each according to its own plane and laws, were the all to imagine the universe were indeed reality, then woe to the universe. For there would be no escape, now see, from lower to higher. This is what this whole alchemical process was about, family. Fixing this flaw. So the simulated reality had to be created. That's mercy.
So, now, Eitai, see, we have to understand why the sacrifices were given to replace, you understand, the perfection that had not been created within the simulated reality. So that's why the similitudes and all of that was allowed till we fix the flaw. Once the flaw, you understand, and reach the point of it being what fixed, that's when the door will shut, and those that will not, you understand, be able to come in and have not, you know, move out of duality, that flaw into the wholeness. This is where we are.
Now, see, that's when we'll be able to offer the whole lamb.
There you go. There you go.
What? Without what? Spot or blemish.
Right. There you go. There you go.
But that ain't got to do with no vegetables or no animals or nothing like that. That's got to do with you.
Right. Right.
And I'll explain this like I explained it to that, like I told and stated it to Nasi earlier, that we all have been made whole. But it's just like when you've been injured or you go through a operation to correct something, you have what after that? You have that rehabilitation process.
Yeah.
And now see, you use these canes and crutches and walkers and whatever to support you to rely. But it should be a point where you recover, right? Through what? An ever increasing understanding of what? Your true self.
Yeah.
The higher truth. Then you get rid of those things, you throw those things to the side, and you walk on your own. You run on your own, or you fly on your own.
Sharona, they call that therapy, don't they? Yeah, they call it. Yeah.
So the simulated reality was created out of mercy. Because if things were real like that, there would be no escape. It would be too fixed. And it would not allow us what? An opportunity to move to where what? We recognize the simulated reality, and then we move out of it into an organic reality, an organic way of living.
And when we move into this organic, it's going to be set deeply, securely, and permanently.
Absolutely.
Where we headed.
Dang.
It says divine word toward toward divinity, toward the source. Then would the universe become a fixity, and progress would become impossible. And again, we're saying that, it's going to be impossible to run this race walking on walkers and crutches.
Yeah.
And using a cane. We got to embrace the fact that this alchemical process did in us what it was supposed to do. And go through this therapy process for the purpose of not having to go through therapy again, and use those things that enabled you by mercy to recover. When we do that, we can hit the gas, family. And eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor the heart imagined. We right there.
Okay.
And if man, owing to half wisdom, acts and lives and thinks of the universe as merely a dream, akin to his own finite dreams, then indeed does it so become for him. And like a sleepwalker, he stumbles ever around and around in circles, making no progress and being forced into an awakening at last by his falling, bruised, and bleeding over the natural laws which he ignored. Keep your mind ever on the star, family. This is a hint. And you know we've gone through the process of a star dying, turning into a black hole, and what? Allowing us to transition through and move to the singularity. Keep your mind ever on the star, but let your eyes watch over your footsteps, lest you fall into mire by reason of your upward gaze. Again, we're not talking about no stars in the heavens that you have to gaze upward. Don't no stars rule over us. We are the stars. And we are for what? Signs and for seasons. We determine that. But you can't do that from the standpoint of a servant. Because you'll be doing what? Bowing down and worshiping the stars. Going to what? The astrological charts to determine your destiny. That stuff don't control us. The stars were put there to control and influence everything that happens within this physical realm. But if you're human, you won't rule over it. It will continue to rule over you. And that is a reference to what was said to Cain in the 4th chapter in the 7th verse. You should rule over it. Remember the divine paradox that while the universe is not, still it is. Remember ever the two poles of truth, the absolute and the relative. Beware of half-truths. I think they made that clear. This is our ancestors speaking to us on how to navigate our way through this simulated reality. What hermeticists know as and I want us to write this word Hermes down, and hermetical, Hermes, because we're going to come back to this. Very important. What hermeticists know as the law of paradox is an aspect of the principle of polarity or duality. The Hermetic writings are filled with references to the appearances of paradox in the consideration of the problems of life and being. That's everything, ain't it?
Yeah.
The teachers, that is, our ancestors, are constantly warning the students against the error of omitting the other side of any question. But this is what we've been trained to do now, see?
Yeah. Yeah.
We've been trained to focus on life and to what? Omit the opposite aspect of death. We focus on what? The vegetables as food, but we omit out of the equation meat. And we don't consider that. And we end up with what? A half truth. Ain't nobody promoting one diet over the other or life over death. We want to get to the higher understanding of the interaction, the dynamic interaction of whatever polar opposite there is.
Yeah.
And not to just focus on a literal, well, I should do this or I should do that, or this is good for me, this is not good, this is right, this is not right, this is good, this is evil. That's vanity. It's vanity. And it will not get us to the destination that we seek or that we claim to seek.
Duality.
It'll keep us locked into duality. You're correct, Bakuria. And their warnings are particularly directed to the problems of the absolute and the relative. I remember one point we didn't want to deal with the relative truth. But we had no understanding of what? The simulated reality and its function and purpose. No idea whatsoever, Nasi.
Right, Eitai.
Which perplex all students of philosophy. Let me read that again. And their warnings are particularly directed to the problems of the absolute and relative, which perplex all students of philosophy, and which cause so many to think and act what? Contrary to what is generally known as common sense. And we've all made that statement or said that statement that common sense is not so common. This is why it is. Half truths, considering only half of an equation. And we caution all students to be sure to grasp the divine paradox of the absolute and relative, lest they become entangled in the mire of half-truth. With this in view, this particular lesson has been written. Read it carefully. Read it carefully. This is our ancestors speaking to us. The teachers are constantly warning the students against the error of omitting, removing, or deleting the other side of any question. And isn't this what we do when we have a dispute with someone and we think we're right? We listen long enough. We don't listen. We actually will listen. We're listening till what? So the other person gets through talking.
Can't wait to get the word in, huh?
And what they right, and what we do now, see, we hit the delete button.
Right.
We automatically do that.
Yeah, you're right.
We ain't heard nothing they said.
Ain't heard nothing they said.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I was listening to an astrologer, and he was talking about the paradox between this season of Virgo and Pisces, and one of them focusing on what needs repair, and the other trying to look at perfection. But he said that there had to be a balance between the two. And so I was looking at the fact that this is actually the season of the spring equinox. And so in my neophyteness, I'm asking, could there be a relativity of that to what we're looking at this particular time, that we have actually taken this idea and put it into similitudes again and made our holy days and all those, when we're really looking at cycles, entering into new cycles of understanding, really.
I can't say it any better than what you just stated right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am. That was
yes.
beautiful. That was
Right,
beautiful.
right.
Yes.
Fine, put together.
Yes.
That was the
That that
I
that
can't
was the
say it
answer.
any better.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Okay.
exactly that is well stated. Well stated.
Yes. No question.
Yeah, but I have to admit that it's hard for me to keep it. I have to write it down myself to say, okay, stay here, get this paradigm because it can slip away.
That's right. And look, join the club. Join the
Yes.
club.
Okay.
We are all in the process of mastering.
Yes.
So
Yes.
whatever it takes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the transition. I'll read it again. It says, the universe must be treated as real, and life and action and thought must be based thereupon accordingly, although, meaning however, with an ever understanding of the higher truth. See, we're all on that path. So
Yes.
if it requires writing it down or doing something that is related to intellect, again, we better do it until we fully made that transition.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right? But we are on the right path, and it's evidenced by everything that we are hearing today. We are on the right path.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's get a little bit deeper into this divine paradox. Genesis 1 and 29. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, and to you it shall be for meat. So this word meat is the word okla. Okla, meaning food, something that you what? Consume, devour, or eat. Here's the paradox. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, and upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all fishes of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Every moving thing that liveth shall be what? Meat for you.
Mm-hmm.
Paradox,
Mm-hmm.
contradiction, even as the green herb, I have given you all things.
Mm-hmm.
See, first we go from Cain and Abel to the first offering. Cain offers vegetables, rejected.
Mm-hmm.
Abel offers the meat with the fat, now
Mm-hmm.
accepted. Genesis 1:29. Oh, this is the diet. Genesis 9, 2 and 3, something different. Now, either we ignore one or the other, or we accept them both and explain away this apparent contradiction, or we solve the contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
We solve the paradox. Now, remember, we talked about the half wise, vain, and presumptuous fool that ignores what? One half of an equation in favor of the other. And we mentioned it here and said, see the complete excerpted scripture passage below. Here it is. Half wise fools because of their transgression. The transgression is what? Omitting the other side. And because of their iniquities are afflicted. Listen, their soul abhorreth all manner of meat, and they draw near unto the gates of death. Didn't we mention this earlier, Malkiel?
Okay.
Didn't you get sat down
Okay.
for bringing
Twice.
this thing up? And what?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to what? Resolve the
Mm-hmm.
paradox of vegans dying.
Mm-hmm.
If this
Okay.
ain't speaking to
Yes.
us on this guy,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
now see, we got to go ahead and accept the fact that we are unique in this. And
Yeah.
if we are hearing this is what prophets and wise men and seers for centuries, millennia,
Right.
wanted to
Right.
hear and to
Yes.
see,
Yes.
but didn't
Yes.
see. Why? Because it was
Yes.
sealed up. It was shut
Yes.
up.
It,
The words were shut up.
Mm-hmm.
it said they wrestle to their own destruction. They wrestle the scripture to their own
Their
destruction.
own destruction.
Yes.
But family, then, in the face of these paradoxes, Malkiel, that have
Mm-hmm.
become real-time problems. Problems now see,
Yes.
not theoretically, not just in the scriptures, but real-time
Real
history.
time. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's become contemporary history that required an answer, not reasoning, not rationalizing. Well, hey, you don't know how they eating.
Well,
We don't know what they doing. They doing the diet wrong, or they're we making all these assumptions, trying to explain these things away. But the fact remains that their soul abhorreth all manner of meat, and yet and still they draw near unto the gates of death.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Question. I have to, I can't get lost. I can't get lost. Okay. I don't know why Malkiel got set down.
Uh-huh.
And I'm hearing, um, there has to be a balance between meat eating and vegans. And then you mentioned that plants have feelings and that they have blood. And I've always thought back about that because as vegans, we always saying, do no harm.
Right.
So it's like,
Hello?
Did we lose?
I
that
think,
mother got on.
yeah, sound like,
Sharon, you get cut off?
I think so.
wait a minute. Can you hear me now?
Hear you now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think I have a bad connect. I have a slow internet connection.
Right.
Um, okay, let me not get lost in understanding that there is the same there is a different level of harm taking place when you eat animals and when you eat the plants.
Li-
Am I
listen,
am I right?
listen a little longer. All right.
Okay, can I say one other thing too?
Sure can.
I've heard other people talk about getting to the level of utilizing energy in a more efficient manner where you become a breatharian. I mean, are these all still where we're entering into these cycles of rest
Uh,
where you don't have to do any work?
you're on it, but just listen a little longer. We're not, like we stated before, we're not talking about a diet like that. All right.
Could it at some point involve that?
I'll leave that up to the listener. It
Okay.
could, very
Okay.
very much so. But I just want to concentrate now on the energetic nature of things. and how we make this transition, because
Okay.
it will bring this home within the next two verses.
Okay.
Then they cried out unto the Lord in their trouble. What does that mean? They made this transition from what? Humans to divinity. And he saveth them out of their distresses. How? Eitai, he sent his word. It has to be a new word, a new thought. Are you all with me?
Absolutely.
It can't be within the framework of the same thing. Now see, eat this, don't eat that, don't eat at all. Ain't about eating like that.
Okay.
It's about, look, let me ask you again. What does God eat?
He don't.
God, it ain't about eating or not eating.
Right.
We're gonna find out.
Eitai, the problem is we still thinking that we in this human thing.
We
As
not
long
a human thing.
as human, it ain't gonna make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Go back and explain again to them about the human experience. You know, are you human trying to have a divine experience? Or you divine, you understand, living in a human existence? How you gonna, we gotta consider, what is we?
This is the question,
Okay.
because now see, as you said, once we make this full transition, man, all things become new.
All things. That's how it's written.
All
Yes.
things become new.
Yes.
That's right.
Now, to address this, let's go back. We are all, I don't claim to have made the transition now, see. I'm
Absolutely
not
right.
there, but I am transitioning. So,
We in transition, right?
right. So I recognize the finite nature to a certain extent of my existence. So then I have to treat certain aspects of the universe that I have not overcome as real, especially
Okay.
as it relates to the diet, because I want to make this transition. I want to leave myself enough time to what? To transition.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be mindful of my diet. Are you all with me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
However,
yes.
Okay.
I'm going to be mindful of how I live, how I
Mm-hmm.
behave, how I think.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it must be based according to what? The finite, the things that are still finite and not infinite within me. I have not made that full transition. However, I'm keeping my attention focused on the ever understanding of what? A higher truth and a
Mm-hmm.
higher life. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, eye has not seen.
Right.
When it relates to this transition taking place, it says, "We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in an instant, in the twinkling of an eye." That what?
Mm-hmm.
Finite will become what? Infinite.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Corruption will put on what? Incorruption.
Incorruption. Mm-hmm.
Death will be what? Swallowed up in life.
Mm-hmm.
But we have not reached that point yet. We good.
How about sometimes when you lose, you win.
Look, if you try, you right on it, Shona. If you try to save your life, guess what? You gonna
You lose it.
we gonna we are heading toward this. Sharona, you're gonna have to stop trying to teach my class.
Oh, freaking. I'm just trying to understand, really.
You know already though.
Right.
You know
Got it.
already.
Got it.
You gotta have confidence in that. You already know. I'm not telling you that the only reason that you can identify with it and recognize it because you already know. We are moving from the
Okay.
point again. Uh, Sharona, that's intuition.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's intuition that is being awakened in you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're moving from the point of what? Teaching and learning to knowing intuitively.
Right.
We're not there yet, but the evidence is clear
Mm-hmm.
that we're moving toward that. That is the only way, Malkiel,
Mm-hmm.
that you can witness to anything.
Absolutely.
Because it's
Absolutely.
internal. It's
Mm-hmm.
internal. You know it's right. You didn't learn it. You never learned it. But somehow you know it's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Genesis 4, going back to Genesis 4 again. And Adam knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain. And we know one was a keeper of sheep. That's meat. One was a tiller of the ground. That's fruits and vegetables and nuts and berries and so forth. And in the process of time, it came to pass, Cain brought forth the fruit of the ground. Now, this is what we've accepted, right? But it was rejected.
Mm-hmm.
There was no, so we got to solve this paradox. And again, we have to look into more closely this word fat, kelev. He offered the meat and the fat, and that was accepted. It's the Hebrew word chelev, and it means to be fat, referring to fat. Well, why fat, family? That even in the Hebrew, it says it's the richest and most choice part. But why? When we look at the fat in humans, the fat in beasts, and the choicest part, the most abundant part of what it says, products of the land or earth.
Mm.
We must look at
Mm.
this in terms of cosmic energy
Mm-hmm.
and how we process it
Mm-hmm.
and how it is processed in the earth realm.
Mm-hmm.
Cosmic energy, family, is constantly being drawn back unto and into itself. The
The black
source.
hole.
Absolutely. Keep your eyes always upon the star. You're the star. So let's see how this thing works. Light energy or cosmic energy is absorbed by plants through what?
Photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis.
Mm-hmm.
Directly into the plant through family its skin and is converted into energy within the plant by means of chlorophyll. and it's transferred throughout the plant and utilized as energy. The moose does what? Eats the plant. And the lion or the man eats the moose or the plant. Now let's see how this thing works, and tell me if this is an efficient process or not. See, we have to see some things we're used to, but you can't call it natural or organic. That's just the way things are. There is a law that there are higher laws that govern what? Higher things.
Yep.
The organic truth. Now see, and there are
That's right.
lower laws or lesser laws that govern what? The simulated truth. And again, we'll go back to this, that if you have not made that transition, what is finite, what is relative, what is temporal seems real to you, natural. That's the way it's supposed to be. But let's look at this thing in terms first of efficiency. Joules are how you quantify light energy, all right, or cosmic energy, light energy. They are measured, they are reduced to units called joules, all right? For every 1,000 units of light energy that comes down to the sun and that is attempted to be what? Synthesized by a plant, the plant only retains 10 joules out of 1,000. Y'all got to hear that. 1%. And the rest is what? Lost to the environment. Does that sound like an efficient system?
Nope.
Does it sound infinite or eternal? See, it's just something that we've become accustomed to and used to, and we say, well, that's nature. Is it really? Or is it the simulated reality? So for every 1,000 joules of light energy or units of light energy that come down, only 10 is retained by the plant. 990, 90% of it is returned back to its source, back into the universe, back into the environment. And 10 joules of energy is available as food for the plant, energy for the plant to carry on its processes. So then, an herbivore or a vegetarian eats the plant, eats the whole plant, Malkiel.
Okay.
The whole plant. And of the 10 joules of energy that the plant retains to keep itself alive, the moose eats it, only retains 1 joule of energy, and 9 joules is lost into the environment. Then comes the carnivore. That uses his energy to what? Kill the herbivore. And of the 1 joule of energy that he gets from eating the moose, 0.9% or 0.9 units goes back into the environment and is lost, and he retains what? The 1%. Does that sound like vanity?
Now, Eitai, just coinciding with what you said, but go back to when you read Power Verses 4s.
Yes, sir.
He explained how economically the universe is.
Right.
So we find here the simulated reality is not like the organic universal reality. We got to understand that, Clay.
And I'm human photosynthesis is efficient.
Say again.
Human photosynthesis could also be efficient.
Now look, now you're talking not about chlorophyll, you're talking about melanin.
Right.
Aha.
Okay.
Now see here we get to it. This dark energy matter or dark matter energy consciousness is in us.
Yes, that's right.
It's all along the surface of our skin. And that's, but listen, family, this is going to cause and facilitate the transformation, y'all got to hear me, from human to divine.
Yes.
It's not for us to stay human.
Yes.
That's not the goal.
Nope.
Okay.
But while we're here, we should be aware of these laws, but we should be also aware of the nature of this, of the simulated laws, the lower laws, and mastery of these laws is not to omit one or the other, but what we were told to use the higher laws
Right.
against the lower laws. For what purpose? The purpose of escaping the pains of the lower planes. Man, I don't want to be worried about a diet all the time. I'm just being honest. I don't want to see. I'm tired of cutting my toenails.
Listen, if you don't get to a higher level of consciousness, you cannot escape the pain on the lower realm.
There's no way you're going to escape.
No way.
Working.
We got to understand this. Eitai,
yes.
What you've touched upon here now, and you're going to finish this out, but I want to recommend to the saints. See, now we're gonna really bring it back and show how we all missed this here. We missed it, and Abba Ben Ami has set something in motion called wholeness that ain't nobody understood. They don't even talk about it today. But everything that you sat here talking about, I give you one word. The word is willful. And he said, we willfully, through willful disobedience, but the word willful gives the wrong, when you look at it in Hebrew, the word is, what is the word? Nadav, which means to volunteer.
Right.
But you said we volunteered for this. We just ain't understood what to do.
Absolutely.
This is we're gonna have to go over this again because everybody trying to grasp this from this simulated reality, and we miss it. So I'm gonna leave it up to you, but I think we done hit on something here that is most significant in the transition, you understand, from the simulated into the organic or the human nature into the divine nature.
I got about 5 more minutes, family. If y'all can bear with me, we good?
Let's go for it.
Absolutely.
5, 10 more minutes and we'll finish it out because I really
Let's go.
connected.
Let's go.
Let's go.
All right. I want to connect it to the point that Nasik made about this term willful, which he said voluntary. Voluntary. And we're gonna know. I want to give us this before we leave today, so we know exactly where we can focus our attention on. So what is shown here is the progressive loss of energy in the food chain,
Mm-hmm.
not the gathering of energy, not the progressive increasing of energy, but it's energy lost. And food energy is stored in fat. And it's utilized by humans for what? Physical work.
Was a good word. Mm. Mm.
This is vanity.
Paradox.
This is vanity, family.
Yes.
It's vanity.
Yes. Yes.
Worship.
It's vanity. And we've connected the vegan diet to what? Worship. Proper worship. So food energy is turned into what? Work energy, thermal energy, and then it's stored in fat. This is what this was referring to. The fat. Focusing our attention by what? Respecting Cain's offering, and it said the fat thereof. So we're at this latter time when what? The book was being opened and unsealed, that we would go to the science and understand that this Nasi is a fixed vanity.
Absolutely,
It's a
fixed
fixed
vanity.
vanity.
Clearly, I see it clearly.
All these stuff that we've been doing is
Energy conversion in humans. Now, we rightfully understood through chlorophyll, and photosynthesis is converted in how energy is converted in plants, but again, an inefficient system.
Mm-hmm.
Energy consumed by humans is converted to what? To work. Thermal energy and stored fat. By far the largest fraction goes to thermal energy, just keeping you running, fueling you. Although the fraction varies depending on the type of what? Physical activity or work. All this is related to work. To work for, labor for, toil for, serve, what? As a slave. I don't know about y'all. I don't want to be nobody's slave. Nobody's
No,
slave.
no. Mm-mm.
Me.
Been there, done that.
I'm done with it.
Dang.
Now, we talked about power versus force. See, this is never going to get you to power, because within this system, power implies that energy is transformed, perhaps changing form. All right, and we know it's converted. Energy transfer can be used what? To do work. So power, in this sense, is also related to what? The rate at which this work is performed.
Just have a question right quick, if I can.
Yeah, yes, sir. Go ahead, Bakuria.
The thermal energy is does it also has to do with because I know after the food is being consumed, there's a lot of energy used to digest the digestive system.
That's correct. That's why it has to be considered. That's the fuel, Bakuria, that keeps what? The machine running.
Okay.
And then when you run out of that energy, it's drawn from what? The fat. So that's why when you work out or you work a lot, individuals are lean or should be lean, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a lot of fat stored.
All right. Okay.
So power now, this is finite power. This is not infinite power. This is finite power, and it's directly related to your ability or the rate at which you can perform work. Where your rate of what? Serving, toiling for, laboring for, working as a slave, as a servant, as a human. That's human existence, y'all. That's human existence in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
I
But
ain't made dollars.
the lilies don't toil. Yeshua said, you know,
That was in
the
another
lilies of the
context.
field.
Right. That was in another context, though. The unit of power, this is going again, but that is very prescient, Sharona, because it's going to get to the point that we're going to make. That was in another context, but it is very relative to what we're going to talk about, because we have to begin to what? Cease working. We have to Shabbat right now. Every moment of every day should be a Shabbat. Should be a Shabbat. We'll explain it. The unit of power
Dang.
is the joule per second, known as the watt. You know, we've heard of watts. What is power? Now, this again is in human or physical term, physics. In the phenomenal world, power is the rate at which you do work. The amount of energy consumed per unit time while working. So again, this is why we are all, as humans, under the number 7 days a week, under the number 12 hours in a day, 12 months in a year, that we're subject, imprisoned by those things. And we have been programmed to what? Make the to make the prison,
But
to dress it up, to make it more comfortable. But again, we'll never escape the pains of the lower realm by what? Constantly operating with the perception only of the lower realm.
Constantly chasing the shekel.
Absolutely. Power, a measure of the rate of what? Doing work or transferring energy into what? Work. Work. Ain't no way you're going to reach divinity by doing that or having that mindset. We need a new word, a new thought to create what? A new reality to aid us in the transition from what? Human to divine. to bridge the gap or the perceived gap between humanity and divinity. In physics, again, power is the rate of doing work. It is the amount of energy consumed per unit time. The unit of power is the joule per second, known as the watt. For example, the rate at which a light bulb transforms electrical energy into heat and light is measured in watts. The more wattage, the more power, or equivalently, the more electrical energy is used per unit time. Energy transfer can be used to do work. Again, work is the underlying theme. And we talked about yesterday how the idea of work, since what? The captivity and slavery has been downloaded into us.
Right.
As something that is what? Preferable. Something that makes us what? More desirable. Not only to others, but to ourselves, to our own what? Self-image and self-esteem. It is all human and based on the physical world. Nothing spiritual about it, family. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Energy transfer can be used to do work. So power is also the rate at which this work is performed. So now, this type of power is not related to the power that we're talking about, to infinite power, to universal power, to the power that is in what? Dark energy, dark matter, universal power. This is finite power
Right.
that is related to the maintenance of what? The simulated reality
Of a social system.
and the social system, the cultural system, the economic system. The same amount of work is done. Listen, this is key. The same amount of work is done when carrying a load up a flight of stairs, whether a person carrying it walks or runs. I'm going to say this again. The same amount of work is done when carrying a load up a flight of stairs, whether the person carrying it walks or runs. More power is expended during the running. Why? Because the work is done in a shorter amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
See, we got to finish this work quickly
Mm-hmm.
and get to our power.
Mm-hmm.
That means transferring from this temporal, finite work and getting into what? The work of my Father.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to do it. It seems paradoxical, but I have to do it by what? Entering into the rest that divinity entered into. Cease from working. But they that wait upon the Lord shall what? Renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings. This is power, y'all. They will mount up with wings of eagles. They shall run and not be weary. This is a different type of power.
Right.
They shall walk and not be. This is infinite power.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So very quickly, we want to get to when I went to sleep. Before I went to sleep, I wasn't quite satisfied with the information that I had relative to this Shabbat rest. And so I asked the question, and as usual, I got up, and the word that was on my mind and that I saw was the word magnum opus. Magnum opus, the great work. And this is going to get us, as we close, to thinking about what the great work is, as well as what the Shabbat is and is not. And we should, at this point, be in agreement that Shabbat is not a day. It's not about a holy day or anything like that. It's not about service. It's not about ceasing from work like that. No physical work. You're going to have, while we're here in this form and in this body, we're going to have to perform physical work, some type of physical work, whether we're working at a job or whether we're just moving around. That is, it takes energy to maintain this physical form. Everybody with me?
Right.
The magnus opus of alchemy, which contains the singular truth, not the dualistic truth, but the singular truth, this higher truth, alchemists need to know. The alchemist tells Santiago that the tablet, that is the word, that we need to hear, cannot be understood with reason, with the intellect, because it provides what? A passage or a transition or a transmutation to the soul of the world. That's from the Emerald Tablet. The opus magnum, or the magnum opus, in reference to the divine work of creation and the plan of salvation within it, the alchemistic process was called the great work. In it, a mysterious, chaotic source material. Now, we know what that is. That is melanin. A mysterious, chaotic source material called materia prima or prima materia, containing opposites, still incompatible, and in the most violent conflict. Sharona, this is the war. And the war exists because we have not solved the paradox within ourselves. We have not syncretized and made one these opposites, these polarities. Yet incompatible and in the most violent conflict, is gradually guided towards the redeemed state of what? Perfect harmony, the healing philosopher's stone, or lapis philosophorum. The philosopher's stone is the third eye. First we bring together, then we purify. We break down what has been purified. We purify the divided. We unite the purified and harden it. In this way is one made from made from man and woman. The two become one. We're going to come back to this and go into detail, but I wanted to show you this. We said that the number 12 relates to the 12 zodiac, the 12 months of the year in the solar years in the calendar, the 12 hours in a day, etc., and so forth, the things that usually control men. But this willful sacrifice, this is the whole sacrifice being represented by the hero or the hangman. The number 12 relates to the months of in the solar year and symbolizes the sacrifice, the willing sacrifice of the solar hero. The hangman represents a fall in terms of ego or self-image. It may also represent the loss, that is, relinquishing or sacrifice of material things. Tomorrow we're going to get into detail about that. And Nazar, we've been talking about this for an extended period of time.
Okay.
Do not despair, for such is necessary in order for what? In order to transform the lower nature into the higher self. Malkiel, you've been through this process
Mm-hmm.
and are continuing to
Absolutely.
go through it.
Okay.
Self-esteem can be repaired and material things can be replaced. Perhaps our self-esteem is misdirected. Not just perhaps, definitely. Perhaps we didn't need so much of it in the first place. Inevitably, we must go down before we can go up.
Mm-hmm.
While we hang
Okay.
in limbo, and while we hang in limbo, we can contemplate our errors and determine how to transcend them. This is the position that we've come to, family. The alchemical literature states the alchemist must sacrifice some gold to make the philosopher's stone. And so it is with us on the mundane place. The mundane place is what? The simulated reality.
Mm-hmm.
The question, and this is the question I'm going to leave you with. How long will you remain suspended?
Mm.
How long are you going to delay the transformation between your human self and your divine self? That's the question. And for sure, it's not going to be an indefinite amount of time. So we're going to end with that question. And we're going to come back tomorrow and we're going to really go into detail because, family, this is a step-by-step process. This is the template now by which we can, when we understand it, we can start to make this transition with earnest, with speed, with quickness. We don't have to wait. So we'll stop there and begin here.
What about you?
So I'll just say wholeness,